And the prayer.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, we would like to take a moment of silence in honor of Jackie Belorski, Zach, the young lady, Emma, thank you, and Mrs. Edith, who tragically lost their lives recently, and we lost a wonderful, true definition of a good politician. So if we could just have a moment of silence for them. Thank you. Now, if you would join me in a moment of prayer. Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight with heavy hearts. We are asking that you be with the grieving families and friends and co-workers of the 4 who were tragically killed. Lord, we ask you to give them comfort and peace and be with them during this time of grief and sorrow. Help them to remember the good times and all of the love that they had for our state and for those that they have left behind. Lord, we also ask you for guidance tonight. Help us to make the best decisions for our taxpayers and our county. Lord, please be with us, and please be with those who are not feeling well, and help them to make full recoveries. We ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And could we address the approval of the July 13th special meeting minutes?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Abstain.
One abstain. And then the minutes for July 14th.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. Moving right along, the next thing on the agenda is KEDCO. Alan, you have some information for us?
Good evening. I am here to share a few mid-year updates as well as an ordinance for your consideration. And so I will attempt to be brief. I know in the packets you have the quad chart that has our mid-year updates. Just to give a brief overview of the kind of things we're working on, this is just a snapshot. But starting in the top left and kind of moving clockwise around bottom left, just want to reiterate something we talk about every time we're together, that really working to make sure we build this so we can sustain and scale our organization, our efforts to really to represent the opportunities here in the community, but also to focus on the assets that we have to build around, which are entrepreneurship, the legacy of entrepreneurship, the housing, the quality of life that we have, as well as the talent, the job opportunities that are here, as well as the talent needs that companies have. Those are very unique to this county. And so we want to make sure we do all that we can with those, invest those talents wisely, but also make sure that we are helping to make things possible here. That, as for example, working with the READY grant program. So the next thing we'll look at this ordinance would allow the county to continue to access programs like READY, but still, READY is something, if we don't put together projects, opportunities, and apply for that funding, it will go elsewhere. So I want to make sure we don't miss those opportunities, and then ultimately become known for how we do that work. So moving to top right, we are adding a few more team members, specifically around project management. We're creating a lot of work, so we want to make sure we have the people to do the work. And what that means is, as we have more complex projects, if it's housing related or entrepreneurship, anything, that we have people who can make sure we monitor all the tasks, all the timelines, all the partners that we manage, to have a full-time and then a part-time, both to help with that going forward, starting on Monday, which makes me feel really good. But ultimately, behind that, we develop our customer service model. How do we do the work? What are we known for? And so as people have a choice of whether to start a business, where to start the business, where to grow their business, if it's talent attraction, that they know that we have the resources to help them, grow their business, find what they're looking for here. And so just mindful that we have a lot of work ahead of us, but that we're building capacity to do that work. And so more to come. The last 90 days, we have focused quite a bit here at the bottom right on our entrepreneurship initiative. And so a big thank you to the county for helping us fund the MedTech Accelerator Program. We had a great reception so far on that program. We had an announcement event and then a kickoff event. Each had more than 30 people. So great turnout so far. We're seeing buy-in from entrepreneurs, from existing companies that want to perhaps get teams of people involved, and getting some great publicity and recognition even around the state and around the country for that kind of a program, of having something that helps people start new companies in this area focused around medical technologies. And so, again, our job is to be that first point of contact, the front door, to help them do that here. One more small example of that, putting together a small shared use space downtown here. I refer to it as an incubator space. I don't know, it's not quite an incubator, more a space we can use for events. If people need to have access to a desk or an office, a place to have meetings, it will have something. And ideally, that becomes a prototype that if we're successful with it, we take and have more spaces like that elsewhere in the county. It's a big county, so we want to make sure we can meet the needs really at all four corners. And then our next 90 days, again, focusing around project management, managing what we already have in front of us, and then getting back in front of our business owners, our business decision makers, managers, and make sure we understand what their needs are. And we do that on a regular basis, but that is going to be the focus now going into the next 90 days, of make sure we're out in front of our business contacts, understanding what their plans are even as they're getting ready for next year already, and that we can support those. So again, very high level overview, but I'm very pleased with the progress we've made. Of course, foundational support from the county is our key partner to make that happen. And so thank you. I'll pause for questions, but that's a very brief update from our team at KEDCO.
Does anybody have any questions of Alan?
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can see you have a lot of things going on here, so.
There's a lot to do. Reminded of the story of Nehemiah, right? Too busy to come down from the wall. We want to be so busy that we're not just to be busy, but that we're making things happen and building the wall, not to keep people out, but help to make work happen here.
Successful progress. Okay, no further questions, no questions on that. The next piece.
All right, the next item. So we have an ordinance. So currently, Kosciuszko County is one of the 11 counties in the Northeast Indiana Regional Development Authority. So to participate in programs like the READY funding, a city or county would need to be part of one of these RDAs. It's actually my first time I was here in this room with county council was to ask the county to consider joining back in 2016 timeframe, I think. And so I appreciate that opportunity. But now it's time to renew and to continue to be part of that 11 county region. Again, every county that wants to be able to participate in programs like READY needs to be part of our RDA region. We're with the 11 counties in Northeast Indiana, second largest by population behind Allen County. So we have a big contribution to make towards the success of this region and towards the direction of the region going forward. And so I know there's a question, Joni asked a very important question, what does it cost? There's no price tag to being part of the RDA. We need to make sure we represent, the opportunities we have. We have projects that would be able to pursue that READY funding, that we help them be successful. But really no ongoing expense or cost to be part of this, which is something that we support through KEDCO.
What have we utilized them for in the past, since 2016?
So the 2016, that was when we had the Regional Cities Initiative. Had a portfolio of 100 and something projects around the region. We had one project funded in the county. That was the Buffalo Street project here, the mixed-use redevelopment. I think it's really, again, up to us bring more projects, shovel-ready projects to them, and make them say no. It's not, to borrow a phrase I've heard, that everybody gets a puppy. It's that, we're looking for transformative projects that we can support around the region. And again, with our industry base, our quality of life, our amenities, we have, things in our pipeline that we can take to them.
And something that I have learned recently is that having that list ready is really important, because we can't wait until the opportunity happens.
Right.
We have to have the opportunity on our plate and then jump at it. So I think
Yeah.
that's an important point.
If I could share an example of that, the city of Wabash has been very successful in the last 10 to 15 years, and it's because they have a list of not only projects that they're aware of, but they have engineering plans and all the upfront work done. So when even a short-term funding opportunity comes forward, they've got everything ready to submit. We aspire to have that kind of level of preparation. We're not there yet, but we're working.
Alan, do we have some projects on the previous 7 years and carry over for the next 8 years? I was trying to think of some of the projects. Was Wagon Wheel mentioned in that one time? Or?
So Wagon Wheel, the Wagon Wheel project was part of the regional cities portfolio. I don't believe they resubmitted for the current portfolio. I mean, it certainly would be eligible if there's something of significance that we could pursue. But really, it's anything entrepreneurship and innovation related, housing and talent recruitment related, or quality of life and downtown development related. So pretty broad focus. It's up to us to show how the projects that we want to pursue help move the needle to make the area more attractive.
I'm just curious, do they send out a notice that they're ready to take those project suggestions and then award funding?
So there's an online application, and so we help to collect in and work with anyone that wants to pursue a project, help make sure that they are, ready to go and will be competitive.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve the ordinance to be a member of the Northeast Indiana Regional Development Authority, or in the alternate, join the Northeast Indiana Regional Development Authority.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
All right.
So we have a little segue, I think, into
You
the
wanna do-
redevelopment. I think while you're there, maybe this might be the time for Joni to jump into some information about the redevelopment commission.
Thank you. The redevelopment commission met and we approved seeking approval from both the commissioners, which should be first, but because of timing will be second, and the council, to utilize seeded funds that are already there for economic development, which would be paid back through TIF funding, to start, I call it the South Shore Project. They have a different name. Can you remind me what their name is?
South Shore Village.
Okay, South Shore Village. Thank you. We're looking to see first if it would qualify to be a TIF district. And that process, the redevelopment commission has approved going forward with Baker Tilly. They came in at the low bid on that, or not bid, proposal, sorry. And the group felt comfortable. They have a good track history, and they've done this several times over. So we're allowing them to start that process to do the 1%. This is all pending council and commissioner approval. But it would be like an interest-free loan that we would eventually pay back once the TIF district is up and funding is being generated through there. It would be a housing TIF, basically, because if we do a housing TIF, then we can also do commercial. But if you do a commercial, you can't do housing. Our legislators in action. So we want to do a housing TIF and then do the also commercial side. And then I think they have some plans otherwise for some not-for-profit and some other ideas. If you've never had an opportunity to meet the two gentlemen, hopefully they will come to a council meeting in the near future and you can meet them. They're very entrepreneur-minded. They have a vision and they have a focus. Very impressed. So looking for, I will make the motion that we approve pending commissioner approval, utilizing the CDIP funds to help start that process.
I second that.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I have a question. Do you have an idea of what kind of dollars you're talking?
We do. Do you have that with you? Because I got something and then I buried it.
I believe the Baker Tilly proposal was in the ballpark of 12,500. I mean, suggestion would be to provide a budget a bit more than that, maybe 25,000.
Yeah, Baker Tilly wants 7,500 max, and then we would have attorney fees for the redevelopment commission also, which he said he thought his would be about that. That would be 15,000. There may be some additional charges depending on if we need them to come for meetings, if they have to hold public meetings and I'm not sure what all the requirements are. But there are specific steps that they will have to take. There is a 1% test. They have to go through, talk to the school systems. I mean, it's a very lengthy process. And so we're 25,000 or less is what we're ballparking.
So is that in your motion? No more than 25,000?
Our auditor would like to speak.
Oh, the only thing I would like to clarify for your motion, this would be out of the KEDCO Special Projects line item.
Yes.
In the edit fund.
Thank you. I forgot that part. Thanks, Michelle. So not to exceed 25,000 in the initial investigation, because then there would be additional charges. But we would come back hopefully to the commissioners first, then to the council if there was a need for further funding.
Okay, anybody have any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Awesome.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
And Carrie?
I'm going to go before Carrie. First up, we have a transfer in the edit fund. It's for $24,104.41 from 911 equipment to edit contractual. And this is just to put the funding over into the proper line item to be able to spend it. This is a contract for maintenance for the software for the sheriff's department. And the main part of it's paid out of the law enforcement fund, and the remainder has to be paid out of the 911 equipment, but we have to have it in a contractual line item to be able to pay it. So,
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. Thank you.
and this is the same thing, $30,000 transfer from computer equipment to maintenance and software, just flipping that money over to be in the proper line item for expenditures. I think IT department's trying to balance and figure out where they need to be for their contracts and their equipment. So we're just moving funds over into the proper line item to be able to pay those expenses.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on that?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried.
Thank you, and I'll let Carrie have the next one.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Coming before you this morning for a request for transfer from our Land and Improvements Fund for legal expenses. Hopefully, you guys all received the information I sent here a while back with the billing as well as the hours, and also just a letter for me that gave some highlights of some of the things we were doing and some of the things that were going on, and then also a little comparison of legal fees of area counties. So hopefully received all that. Also, at this point, we've kind of put any legal expenses on hold till we could have some additional funding. We did in our request, we did request $50,000 was our transfer request that we did ask for. With roughly about a month leg here because of tabling it the last month, that could be moved down to probably around the $41,000. Looking at what we've spent the first 6 months, that's roughly about an $8,100 a month cost. So 5 months, that's how I come up with the $41,000. You know, I realize it's a large transfer, but, you know, I think we got to make sure that we have good legal counsel to represent us here, because there's a lot going on. We've got a lot of things happening right now. You know, we do have some projects that we've kind of put on hold till we can get that, or can hopefully come to agreement to be able to get some additional funding. I did have some additional requests that were reached out to us as far as some things that they would like to see, some additional detailed billing on all things for the legal fees, except for the contract negotiations, HR issues, and land acquisitions, contracts, those types of things would be the things that wouldn't be spelled out just because of their confidentiality in nature. But the remainder of the bill could be spelled out, you know, more detailed. Also, I know one of the other things that was requested that, you know, all bills would be back to or submitted by the 15th, so we can keep up to date on those bills and make sure that we're staying on target as best we can. So with that, I don't know if you have any other questions for me. I'm happy to answer anything that you might have.
Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I really appreciate the time you put in and your narrative, whatever. Honestly, at this point in time, I'm not comfortable with the 50,000 right here. But what I would be comfortable with is doing a transfer of 5,000, having come back each month. If you're doing what you said you're going to do
Okay.
with the timely billing, and I think that shows some good faith from the council wanting to work with the commissioners.
Right.
So I would make the motion to approve a transfer of 5,000 with a caveat, come back next month and we'll consider the same.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Does anybody have any discussion? Anything? John, you have anything, any concerns? Okay. I think that this is a way to rebuild that trust, Carrie. I mean, you know, 21 budget, the additional that we wound up doing in 21,
Right.
and where we're at today.
Yep.
And our goal is to get to where we can make this happen. I do have one question. Included in what money you were asking for, was that including the highways legal fees, or was that excluding? Because when the call came to me, after Steve was told to call me when you didn't have any money,
Right.
I told Steve that he needed to either do a transfer or an additional appropriation out of his funds.
Right.
So we don't want to double that up
Well, I mean, I would prefer with the
with
council's
cap.
permission that we would keep that in the commissioner's budget, because the highway department does report direct to the county commissioners. So just trying to keep that, whether we need to keep that separate, if you'd like to go in the detailed billing now, you'll be able to see what work. Because there is a fair amount of work being done on that 1300 North
Right.
project, that there's a lot of parcels getting shuffled back and forth up there, that I know that those are some things that are kind of sitting idle a little bit right now that we'd really like to get going on. So, I mean, we're willing to work with that, budget and do, keep it in ours and keep it underneath that 5,000 and see how that works out.
Okay, okay.
So he won't need the entire 10,000 up front. Is what you're saying is he won't need the entire 10,000
Oh, as far as
upfront?
Steve? Yeah.
Yes.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, I don't want to speak for, like, he's back there. I don't want to speak for him, but,
Hello, Steve.
but, I think the main thing is that we did have some pressing issues on this 1300 North. We wanted to make sure, because we want to make sure we kind of had a backup plan to make sure that can keep moving, because there's about $7.5 million with NDOT money sitting there that we could mess up and miss a construction season.
Okay, Steve.
Yeah, and to be honest, there's more than just that. There's 3 or 4 other projects that I have to review, contract for land acquisition for Husky Trail, project, also, Bridge 123 documents between LPA and NDOT that I have our county attorney just review before that I sign for the commissioners.
So do we still think we can stay under the 5,000 though?
Sounds like that's
Yeah.
I think some of it is we've got a little bit of a backlog that we've stacked up here.
Okay. I mean, that's why I just wanted to be clear on that.
Right. Right.
So currently, we're up to date, or we're dealing with some kind of a backlog?
Well, there's no bills that have been occurred that haven't been paid. Well, there's a little bit of July, but we have money to cover that.
Okay.
So we've stopped work, but what I'm saying is stacked up is we've stopped work and the work's to be done, but we've not allowed him to do it. Work needs to be done,
Oh, okay.
but we've not allowed him to do it.
We've got the Western Sewer project that's been kind of on hold.
Right.
It's gonna have to get on pretty soon. So there is some pent up work that has to be done. The five stumps to cover.
Well, Madam President, I was frankly prepared to do the additional appropriation for the highway department for the 10 later, but now you're saying you would prefer it to be under the commissioner's budget.
I guess my only struggle, if we get it outside the commissioner's budget, then he's asking us to approve something that his attorney has looked at. So I mean, are we gonna double up on different attorneys looking at the same document versus having it all underneath one?
Well, I mean, I don't think it'd be out of the question to spread that 10,000
Thought we did.
monthly, you know, kind of similar to what we're doing with the commissioner's request. You know, spread that out at 2,000 a month and add that to this 5,000 and move forward.
Okay. Can we have a clarification? Steve, are you using the commissioner's attorney or using a different attorney?
Currently, I've always used the county attorney, which is then the commissioner's attorney.
Right.
So what I do is any LPA document or any contract that has to go through the highway department that they have to sign, I always have them review.
Okay.
It's kind of always been a staple, just to make sure that things are reviewed, and double check. And then once, you know, they review it, then I have the commissioner sign it. That's the way, it's basically them signing over and they can give it all.
Well, obviously, this is gonna be a month-to-month thing. So if we go with the 5,000 a month right now, you come back next month and say we're not quite getting it, then we could make an adjustment at that time.
We're gonna stop again and screen possibly with legal work, and just say we can't do it.
Well, can I make 2 points real quick? One is that Steve's stuff is more time sensitive because he's got bridge people waiting on, he's got other things going on that have to have answers. And you have to sign contracts before they can move ahead, is my understanding. I'm not a highway person and I'm not a commissioner, but my understanding is they're very time sensitive. And the second thing is that we also requested that anything that can be done by a current department head or office holder, the rough drafts of ordinances and that type of thing, especially because other counties have a lot of the same ordinances we do. They're going to try and ask already being paid people to do the rough draft and then review it with the commissioner's attorney for the legalities. I just wanted to include that in our, pardon? Yes, and Carrie and I talked about that also.
Well,
Okay, Ernie.
with that discussion, I would amend my motion to do a transfer in the amount of $15,000 for this month and then 5,000 after that, so they can do the 10, assuming everybody was on board. That way we won't have to do the additional appropriation for the highway.
Second.
I already did, but
Oh, sorry.
I have to second the amendment. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, back to square one.
Yep.
We have a motion and a second. The motion is to make it be 15 for this month and then come back monthly till we get that trust built back up. Does everybody agree? All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You're
Carrie.
welcome.
Thanks, Carrie, for all
Thanks,
your
Brad.
work.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Steve. Okay.
Okay, the next is the ARPA committee recommendations.
Is that you?
I think that's Carrie, but
Oh, Carrie?
Carrie, did you want to do?
You're going to
ARPA?
come back?
The
You weren't
ARPA
done, Carrie, sorry. It's all right. You're just relieved. It's okay.
You're just like.
I like to run away too when I'm
Wiping the
done.
sweat from your brow, right?
Yeah,
the ARPA
off my bald
committee,
head.
Yeah, ARPA.
Drip, drip, I don't have any hair to soak it up.
the ARPA stuff for Lakeland.
Yeah, so we, the ARPA committee met, I forget how, what's it been, almost a month ago, right?
so.
That we met and approved 2 items for the Lakeland Sewer District for, one was, I'm going ad lib here, the 2 things we had, one was for the sludge dewatering equipment, and I think the other one was for storage for some bulk
Bulk
chemicals.
Storage, yeah.
So that this has been in front of the commissioners, both the commissioners and the ARPA board unanimously approved this. We did have, just for information, there was other sewer districts that did come to us with requests, but we just really felt as though the ARPA committee felt as though their request didn't really meet the criteria we were looking for at this time. But these two, we really seen an ROI because this is something that will reduce costs long-term, which will help keep the sewer bills low for those residents in the Lakeland Sewer District. So would look for your approval of those two items.
We also
Excellent.
did not discourage the other sewer districts
Okay.
from resubmitting things that had longer term. And Jim Haney is here this evening from Lakeland. Anything you'd like to say to the council?
Yes, both projects were submitted back in February, and the cost savings then actually will improve. Unfortunately, with inflation, the chemicals have increased, so going to bulk purchase versus 55-gallon drum will generate some additional savings. And then the poly bags also, over time, have increased in price. So we're looking probably about $16,000 savings on the chemical versus, I think we reported 12 in the application. And the the bagging for the dewatering went from about 10,000 to 12,000 savings.
Great. Thank you, Jim.
I'd like to thank Jim for the paperwork he
Yes.
provided us. It was
Yes,
very
thank
thorough.
you.
And with that said, I'd move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Steve.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Steve.
First, I'd like to bring to you, we're going to submit for the community crossings again this year. And every year that we try to submit for it, it's a 50-50 matching grant. So if a project costs $2 million, they pay $1 million, we pay $1 million. And I'd like to ask for a financial commitment letter from the county highway signed by the county council. And this is part of the application process. We didn't get it yet. We're just applying for it. The road that we're applying for is old US 30 from 450 East to State Road 13. And part of that's continuing what we already got last year. And work will start here as soon as they're done with 31. Finn and Brown's moving to Old 30 to go from the county line to State Road 13. And then the other project's going to be from Pearson Road from the city of Winona limits to the Pearson city limits. And that stretch of road needs some improvement, so.
Can you repeat that second one?
Sure.
Sorry.
It's Pearson Road from Winona city limits to Pearson city limits.
Steve or Michelle, what fund are you looking at for this 1.1 million county match?
It'll be the NVH out of our
Okay.
bituminous budget.
Your community crossings figure is $1 million, and your county funds is $1,105,000. Where's the 105 difference come in?
That's the estimated cost of the total project.
Okay.
So what you have to do, part of this application, like it's long. So you have to go out and you have to have someone go out and give you an estimate of what it's gonna cost. And you have to prove that to the state, but they're only going up to $1 million. Well, it costs more than $2 million. It costs $2,105,326.50. Why 50 cents, I'm not
So
real
you
sure.
just took that out of the one project, basically.
Yeah, but I wanted under one application, because if I went two, it's two applicants. So I just put them all together like I did this year.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the grant request
I'd second
moving
that.
forward.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried.
And thanks for doing all the work to get that
Thank you,
submitted to help our county get
It's
those roads
one of
done.
benefit, I mean, anytime, because we were gonna have to do it anyway, and to get half of it paid for, it makes us and allows us to do bigger projects,
Right.
to tackle the ones that we can't afford. So, the other thing I'm asking for is an additional appropriation into road signs. This is a check that we received from NDOT, for closure of 400 East. This was part of their initiative to closing crossings, and what they do is they give you some money towards that. And I'd like to put that in road signs so that I can continue to buy posts and things so I can actually spend it.
So is there a specific replacement schedule for those or just inventory?
Well, like the state of Indiana, in fact, they just put in the rules and regulations, and you've seen them in all our bridges. We've been mandated to change all signs and warning signs for emergency vehicles and load rating, for semis and stuff that go through them. But we have to put them more up towards the intersection so they can read them ahead of time. So we'll use part of that money, and the post and the cost of steel, of course, has gone up. So this money will go towards that as well as the signs that warn.
I'll make a motion to approve the road signs funding.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Steve.
So we just
Thank you.
skip this one, right?
We'll skip the additional for the legal. The next thing on the agenda is the non-binding review, and I've prepared everybody a letter. This is very similar to the letter we sent out last year to the various different taxing units. We aren't telling anybody what they can and can't spend, but we are trying to encourage people in the various taxing units to do the right thing, to look at their year-end cash balances, to review what their 22 certified budgets were and what their June 30th balances were. And if they have more than 2.5 times over their 22 certified budgets, look at what they're using the money for. Do they have a purpose? If it has no purpose, think about reducing some of those costs to the taxpayers. If you have no large increases planned, if there's no, obviously, the no purpose. Long-range saving, obviously, that's the logical thing to do. A lot of the townships and the fire territories that are working towards fire trucks and other pieces of equipment, that makes all the sense in the world. It's a whole lot smarter to amass that money than it is to go out and go in debt to buy it. So we would encourage that if that's what they're doing with the money, that that's a great plan. And to also that they need to be very aware of the tax caps. In about 4 of the units in our county, 3 or 4 of them, the tax caps are becoming a lot of money that the taxing units are not going to get. So the letter is only to call attention to those units and to ask them to do their due diligence as they prepare their budget. We could have a motion to accept that letter, or if you have any questions.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Does anybody have any questions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, motion carried. And next is information on the wage committee. There is a lot of information that we will be providing to the council on what the wage committee has done thus far this year. Anything that's required your action, we brought back to you. But this evening, I've asked Karen McGrath if she would come and would share just briefly where we're at with the JDAI process and the lack of funding for the coordinators for that program.
Thank you. Good evening to all of
Good
you.
evening, Judge.
Our county is extremely blessed to have JDAI. That is an initiative that funds from the state in the neighborhood of $70,000 for juvenile funding that we've been granted this year. We don't have an initiative without coordination, however, and that is the coordination money ran out in July. That was by design. All the counties who have JDAI, we've had it since 2017, some counties have had it much longer, was designed to be funded by the grant for the first 4 years. And after 3 years, it tapered down, and after 4 years, it's gone, with the idea that the county should be able to come up with a way to fund the coordination to continue to use these funds. So looking at ways to fund that. And JDAI, what is that? It's an initiative. It's not just a program. It's an umbrella initiative that looks at ways to support the juveniles in our community. We spend a lot of money. I sit in these meetings, and I'm just amazed at the decisions you all make concerning a whole lot of money in this county. Some of it absolutely necessary, we've got to keep lights on and so forth, some of it discretionary. I can't think of much that we spend money on that has more far-reaching implications than when we're supporting youth and the children, or in fact, they are children, under 18, the very people who are going to make up our community someday, with positive ways to redirect them when they are at their most vulnerable state. And JDAI initially, in fact, it stands for Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative. The idea was keep these kids out of detention facilities, out of boys' school, girls' school, right? Basically prison for children. It's very damaging and traumatic to kids, and they often come out worse. So after many, many studies showed that that is not a successful way to rehabilitate youth, it's damaging, started looking at ways to find alternatives. That initial thrust of that initiative program has proven quite successful. In fact, the county has saved an enormous amount of money. From 2017, I believe those numbers were something in the neighborhood of $88,000 on detention. So far this year, we've spent $800. Those numbers are a little skewed. This year happens to be extremely low, but even by cutting $88,000 in half, we're saving a tremendous amount of money on detention dollars, not to mention not damaging these children further and causing, worst case scenario, adult criminals, when they hit 18. The initiative, the sky's the limit. There are multiple programs right now that fall under that initiative. And the two coordinators that I have, our probation officers, Kara Shively, Dana Bailey, they work outside of their normal job as a probation officer in running these programs and coordinating these efforts, everything from teen court to training of officers in policing the teen brain, helping officers understand the way youth think, how they function, the best way to police them, teaching the teen brain. Other training activities and positive, outreach kinds of things for our youth. They do all of that outside of their normal working hours, outside of their probation officer duties. And as I said, as of July, they're not paid for that any longer. The grant had been funding them at $12,500 each, so combined together, $25,000 a year. And looking for creative ways to continue funding the coordinating efforts so we can continue to receive the state money and continue to have these, the ability to have these programs that fall under this initiative.
Judge, can you explain that the two people involved in this coordination, their success rate, and just a kind of a scope of what they've done since in the last 5 years or approximate 5 years? Because haven't they taken the numbers severely down as far as the children that are being sent away?
Oh, certainly, yes, and that goes on the amount of money that we spend at detention, right? In 2017, there were 56 admissions to detention facilities. That went down to 47 in 2018, 26 in 2019, 2 in 2020. The numbers were, 2021. I don't have a number for that. My admissions numbers cease after 2020, but the dollars we spend on detention are most telling, with the number of kids that are actually needing to be detained. And here's the thing too, it is genuinely a public safety initiative as well. The idea isn't we never send kids to detention facilities. Sadly, there are times we need to. I've had to send them. There are some right now, a couple that have to be in detention facilities for the safety of this community, for the safety of those kids and the families. It's just absolutely essential. But it's being mindful and really wise in deciding when it is necessary, and not just because we throw our hands up and we've tried what we can try, we have no other option for this child. But the numbers, yes, have vastly decreased. And beyond just keeping kids out of detention, what the co-coordinators are doing is an entire mindset in the community of working together to meet the needs of our youth, right? We have school involvement, other, nonprofit, faith-based places, service agencies or whatever that are working together to meet the needs of the juveniles. And from our standpoint, we need somebody to continue to coordinate that effort, or the entire program falls apart. Somebody has to run it.
And also, I asked the question about how can we pay someone in addition to their wages, but the auditor has that system already set up, and they pay them at time and a half, so that we're not violating any labor laws, which is wonderful. I know a judge would never violate a labor law.
Never.
I know. But Karen did a really good job of presenting this to the Wage Committee, and the Wage Committee's recommendation was unanimous to request that the council approve this effective immediately.
Wow.
Anytime. It doesn't matter. My coordinators will work for free for a while because they believe in it.
I understand that, but that's really not fair either.
So what we're really considering tonight is, I looked over the list of funds, and there's a juvenile
Probation fees.
probation user fees fund. And there's funds there that would be enough to carry this for at least this year and probably next year. And those funds do not seem to have been used. I think Michelle shared that at one point, that's where the increase in the probation officers' wages were made. And at one point, it ran clear out of money, and so they just stopped using it. So it seems to be, it's not a dormant fund, but it is a fund that's not been used. So this might be the highest and best use for that fund to see that this program continues. So at this point, what we're needing to address is the council's approval to do an additional appropriation for the next month's meeting in order to consider this. And in that time frame, we have to figure out that job description. We have to figure out exactly where they fall. Michelle and I talked about it today, and there are a couple of, at least one position that looks like is almost a comparable. That would be the rate that we would use. They would not be paid at their probation rate. They would be paid at a coordinator's rate. And so those things will be ironed out. But if we could get approval at least to do the additional appropriation, that would give us the opportunity to address this.
Do we have any idea what we're talking about? I mean, money-wise?
It's
Well,
25,000.
12,500.
12,500
Okay.
each, so
Okay.
Yeah,
25,000.
so $25,000
Per year.
per year, yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we
Is that
do
right?
the appropriations of the 25,000. And then I also, there's no way to backdate it, is there?
No, because she's going to have to advertise it.
Okay.
Yes, I will have to advertise it. That amount was 25 a year for both of them. At this point, they were paid under the grant, January through June. We're only specifically looking at the 2022 year, so 12.5 would cover what they were receiving previously under the grant for the rest of this year. Now, if you choose to do that in January, we'll need to do an additional appropriation for the 2023 budget, since that was not included at the time that we requested that. But we will pencil that in the agenda and work with Judge McGrath to make sure that paperwork is prepared and ready for you guys to review at your January meeting for that additional, so there won't be lapse in time between 22 and 23.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. No one opposed. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
I believe we have come to the end of the line. Are there any comments from the audience? Any questions or comments, thoughts about different subjects? You may.
Just to give you a few updates on what's been going on here in the county. I know I talked with Sue Ann and a couple others may be aware of it, but we had an issue in the jail kitchen. We had water coming up in the kitchen drains, and we found that we had, this was just a week ago, we found that we had a collapsed cast iron pipe under the cement in one of the hallways, and it went in under the jail freezer. So we had to go in and dig a hole outside the building, 18 feet deep, to be able to burst that pipe in and repair that. So that meant 2 holes in the hallway. So a 4x8 hole, 10 feet deep, a 4x6 hole, 3 to 4 feet deep. So here we are just a week later, and we're ready to pour the cement. So that was to the tune of $123,454. So, you know, if you ever think you've got past the first 6 months of the year and you haven't had any major issues, don't do that, because it happened. Another thing that we've been working on here in the courthouse is some repair work. You've noticed some of the damage that has been here on the 3rd floor, and we had the same kind of water damage in the basement in the surveyor's office. The work is done here on the 3rd floor. I have someone coming in to repaint the blue stripe with the gold medallions. The basement work is still ongoing. There's a lot of moisture in there, and they feel like it's coming from the stone that the courthouse sits on, and it is porous and it wicks the moisture up. But that is the worst place we've had that kind of an issue. So it may have to sit for a month. We've got dehumidifiers sitting in there that get emptied regularly a couple times a day, trying to get that moisture out of there to dry it up. But it's going to have to sit the way it is until we can get that to that point. And last but not least, Public Safety Communications Project. We've made great strides since the last time that I've given you an update. We're not across the finish line yet, but we've completed 2 sites of 100 feet, the north site, the central site, but both have electricity. The UPS units are in there, the racks are in at the central site, and they are putting up steel or putting it together down at the south site. So we hope to get that one wrapped up here and hopefully see some steel going up by tomorrow. I know they worked last weekend to try and keep us on schedule, but we're still waiting on a big crane to come in because they have to have a very large crane to come in and top off these sites, but we're getting close. Okay, any questions on those? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.